I don't know about you guys, but I'm always slightly nervous around petrol tanks. So this one, the pump sits in the bottom, so I put like a rubber gasket and bolted it on to seal that hole, and this hole, which I'm going to leave open, it's full of water. And then I can cut all of these brackets off. So yeah, my plan is, well, I decided to keep this tank because on this motorbike the fuel pump is integral. It's actually inside the tank, it's not separate, and also there's a fuel gauge, which I quite like. There's no fuel tap or anything like that. So I decided to keep the tank, but like you say, it's got this odd shape where the plastic fairings sat. So what I'm going to do is grind away the paint in these grooves and then fill them and try and smooth them out, and then I'll sand it and I'll grind these away. Cut off the two lugs at the bottom, which is also for the lower plastic. Now obviously it should go without saying that you've got to be very, very careful when you're using a grinder on a thin metal tank. It's very easy to touch the tank and obviously make a hole in it. Here I stopped part way through and then just wiggled it off with some pliers. Can you see the dot? That's the spot weld. So you want to grind until you just see that. Come on, have another look. Right, see those 3 spot welds. Ding, ding, ding. So they're the ones you've got to get out. See here, I've run the flap wheel through these areas so that the filler's got something to grab hold of, and lowered these until it just touches the paint around, just touching the paint, so I should be able to put a thin skim of filler over that. Here I'm just wiping the tank down with some acetone, because it's really important that it's clean where the filler's going to go to give it the best chance of sticking properly. And here's the filler. Use a pea size piece of hardener to like a golf ball size of filler, but the instructions will be on the tin. You need to make sure it's really well mixed. And then you don't have very long with this sort of stuff, a few minutes at best if it's warm. And then it's just to fill it where you need to fill. And then I'm using like a little plastic scraper that should just get it to the right level by touching the metal either side. If you need it to be a bit raised because it's curved, then you can use a thinner piece of plastic and just hold it slightly bent. If you can just scrape off the excess there at the edges. And just one final go over just to flatten it out. Yeah, and don't mess about with it too much either. Just get it on, smooth it out. And of course it's exactly the same the other side. And then it's a little bit cold out here, so I'm just cleaning off my tools, and then I'm going to take the tank into the house, just somewhere warm for it to dry. Right, when you're putting filler on, you nearly always have to do it in at least 2 or even 3 goes, or 3 layers, because it's a bit sticky, so when you're dragging it you can't leave it smooth. It's not like plaster, which is a lot easier. So before we can put any more filler on, we've got to sand all these high spots down, otherwise when we drag our sort of spreader over, we can easily get a high spot like that. It will just put way too much filler on. So So we need to basically knock all these spots off. Now I'm going to use 240 for this. I could probably use 120, but it just feels so coarse to me. Because I've got a block, it's just a flexible bit of rubber really. It won't hold it super flat, but it will be flat-ish. Fortunately this filler sands really easily, so it's not a crazy job. So I do that, and then when I put that on, it won't catch on anything, so I won't put any more filler on than I need to. When you're sanding, you want to be watching the edges, and it's called feathering out. Basically, when you're sanding, you just watch the edges, and once the edges start to disappear, you know you've got you're back to almost flat. So like here, I've got a ridge here and a ridge along this top edge. So basically I sand until I see the ridge disappear and it's starting to feather out. Of course this is a terrible example. I mean, it's such an odd shape. Most panels will be flatter than this. And your fingers are very good at feeling stuff. Like you can look at something and think it's flat, and then run your fingers over it, and you will really feel if there's a bump or... Not quite sure why I'm doing this really, because it's too cold outside. We're in here to be painting yet. This is going to be a bit awkward because it's convex here. It's concave here, it's convex here, and it's convex here, convex there, concave. Again, all these mixed up now. Convex, concave. I can't even say it now. Anyway, bumps and hollers all over. So I'm just going to have to follow. Let it go where it wants to be honest. See, that's another thing as well. This is just a motorbike for running around on. It's not going to be a showpiece or $1 million car. So most people don't see stuff anyway. You know, if it passes the 6 foot test, you know, it looks alright from 6 foot away, 3 meters, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, obviously I know every little hump and hollow, bump and scratch because I've built it. Most people won't notice. See, like now, I don't think that's taking anything off. It's hitting the metal here and it's hitting the metal here. So I think all these areas are low. Yeah, like I said, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to fill this because of its shape. But I think this might help. Use a rubber squeegee to let it flow more natural. And it's not going to leave much on there actually. So I'm sanding until I can see it running into the paint. This is going to be the same. There's a big bump here and a big hollow here. All sorts. But this is actually tucked down quite underneath the handlebars, so you're not going to get that good a look at it anyway. The important thing was to get rid of these brackets. Alright, and here's a second layer of filler, which is obviously quite a bit thinner than the first one if you've got your sanding right. So it's just to go over it and just fill all the little bits that are low and tidy up the edges like that, so you don't have too much sanding to do. And then it's just to do exactly the same on the other side. And then it's just to repeat these steps, fill and sand until you're happy with the finish. I've still got a bit more filling to do here, but then it was on to the primer. 2 or 3 coats of primer with a light sand, and then 2 or 3 coats of the top colour here, RAL 2000, and then it's the clear coat. I used a tough one that they use on bowling balls, and I just basically emptied the can, so 3 or 4 layers. And here I am just popping the petrol in, ready for the first start up after rebuilding the engine. Right, thanks for watching, and if you found that useful or interesting, you know what to do. See you in the next one.